Live from Lakewood, California, here's your host, Joe Salazar.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to Sipping Tea and Joenomics. So, for those of you who just joined us, thank you and welcome. You just missed our lovely interview with Rihanna, but we're going to jump right into our next segment of Sipping Tea and Joenomics by discussing economics. So today we are getting back to the basics, and we're going to be discussing the basic principles of economics. Now, we're going to start at number 1. The first principle of economics is choices are necessary because resources are scarce. Now, to really understand this principle, we need to first discuss what resources are and what scarcity means. Resources are anything in our economy or in our daily lives that can be used to produce anything else. So a resource could be a literal thing such as water, lumber, anything of that nature, but it could also be intangible things such as labor, money, finances. So those are all resources. Now, scarcity is another bit more complex aspect of the first principle. So, scarcity does not simply the English definition of not having a lot of something. Scarcity in economics is not having enough of something to meet the quantity demanded. What that means is we could have an abundance of something, but if no one wants it, there's no point in it, therefore it's not scarce. Whereas vice versa, we could have a very, very, very infinitesimal, tiny amount of something, but everyone wants it, that is scarce. So understanding those two principles is key to understanding that choices are necessary because resources are scarce. We have to make choices because resources and things that we need to produce and create other things are not unlimited. So that's our first principle. The second principle of economics is the true cost of an item is the opportunity cost. Now this is a very important aspect to realize in economics because very often people think that the cost of an item is a simple ticketed price, the simple receipt that you get. For instance, the movie you just went to go see, you paid $13 for. So the movie costs $13. However, in economics, we also include in the price its opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is whatever foregone activities or prices you gave up in addition to the ticketed price. For instance, to go see that movie, you could have chosen not to go to work that day or chosen to miss a class. Therefore, in addition to that $13 you paid on the ticket, you can also include for the opportunity cost however many wages you would have met at that job or how much you paid for that class included in the cost. So oftentimes what we pay for something is not simply the ticketed literal receipt price, but instead it's the additional opportunity cost, foregone cost that should also be included in the price. Our third principle is how much is a decision at the margin. This principle discusses the trade-offs we naturally make when discussing and deciding whether to do something or buy something over this or that. For instance, a decision at the margin is not something you make for God, but something you make right there and then at the margin. For instance, say you are eating a mini cupcake and you decide to have one, and then you decide to have two. You didn't walk into eating that mini cupcake when you first started eating the second mini cupcake when you were eating that first one. However, after eating that first one, you analyzed your benefits. It was good, it was easy, I liked it, and decided to have another one. That was a decision you made at the margins. And that's something that can be applied to not just our single hand self, but to the entire economy. When producers are deciding to make more of an item or to do more of this or that, it's a decision made at the margin. You analyze your benefits, and then at that moment, you decide whether to go forth or to stop whatever it is you're doing. It's a decision at the margins. The fourth principle is people usually respond to incentives, exploiting opportunities to make themselves better off. In my opinion, I think this is one of the most important economic principles, because I feel that human nature is, to a certain extent, to care for your oneself. We have a natural inclination of survival of the fittest. Therefore, we will choose whatever situation will behoove us and our family. Because, again, we're still animals with natural familial relations. That being said, we do respond to incentives. For instance, a Harvard study discovered that students did better when they were incentivized, i.e. they got cash rewards. So this can work in all facets of the economy, from ourselves to huge firms, to the governments, to the financial market. People respond to incentives to make themselves better if they can. I thought it's a very basic economic principle that everyone can relate to. We all want to make ourselves better, i.e. taking a pay raise. Very few people, I think, would not take a pay raise. You want to respond to that incentive to make yourself better. Our fifth principle we're going to be discussing is that there are gains from trade. This, I believe, is also another very basic, very simple principle in economics. There are gains from trading. No one country, no one person, no one entity is perfect or expert in creating one item or one product. Therefore, there are gains from trading with someone else who is. For instance, Apple, the maker of iPhones, is a revolutionary and very important economic force in that they revolutionized the phone and how to make softwares easier for interfaces and normal people to use. However, they are not the best at making screens. Therefore, they trade with Samsung, who are experts in making digital screens, and both benefit from the trade. Apple receives a quality screen for them to use for their product, and Samsung receives monetary power, money. There are benefits from trade. There are gains from trade is important because this increases specialization. In old times before modernization, people had to sustain themselves. So in Ireland, they only ate potatoes because that's what they could. They were specialized in their potato farming, so that's all they had. However, as modernization increased and people could now trade among countries, Ireland was able to export their potatoes and import other products, i.e. coffee, lettuce, pineapples, stuff that Ireland cannot grow, but now everyone benefits from the trade. They can get their potatoes, and Ireland can get other items from other places of the world that they specialize in, as they specialize in potatoes. Our sixth principle is a little bit more complicated, but very important in any economic situation. Our sixth principle is that markets move towards equilibrium. What that means is that markets naturally, without intervention usually, we'll get to that in principle 9, but usually move to equilibrium on their own accord. This is another natural instincts that humans and animals have, where we want to be in a place where we can be at our best situation without taking away or harming others. For instance, when a checkout line, when there's long lines at a grocery store and a new checkout line opens, we will now all shift so that there's equal people in all lines. That is something that the economy will also do. It will shift towards equilibrium on its own accord. Resources should be used as efficiently as possible to achieve society's goals. Now, an economy is efficient if it takes all opportunities to make everyone better off without making someone else worse off. Now, this is a very important economic principle in that we need to assure to be as efficient and equitable as possible. However, this is one of the more confusing and confrontation-creating principles in that many people do not agree on equity and what is fair. Equity is when everyone has their fair share of everything, whereas as people and economists, we can definitely dictate the finite point of efficiency where we are creating the most of what we have and making people better off without making others worse off. It is a bit more difficult to pinpoint a point of equity. For instance, if there is a full parking lot, but there is a row of empty handicapped parking spaces, you could argue that is not being efficient, though it is being equitable to those who are handicapped. It is not the most efficient way to manage a parking center. The same thing can be said for popular deals as something as simple at a grocery store. At grocery stores, there's always super great deals sometimes that people want to take advantage of. However, grocery stores know to place limits on it as to be equitable, as to give everyone a chance to take advantage of that deal. However, that may not always be efficient in that if you let people buy however much they want, you are guaranteeing to a certain extent that your product will be sold and you don't have to worry about surpluses and what to do with an abundance. However, by being equitable, you're giving everyone a chance to take advantage of that deal. So, this is where the seventh principle gets a little dicey, where people argue on what is equitable and what is not. The eighth principle is that markets usually lead to efficiency. In our modern economy, there are already incentives put into place, and as we know, people respond to incentives to make sure that our market is as efficient as possible and that we use resources properly. No company wants to be wasteful, because when they are wasteful, they are losing profit. For instance, if you own a t-shirt making company and you're buying fabric, you want to make as many t-shirts out of a yard of fabric as possible, because the moment you start wasting fabric, that is profit you could be making in that, selling another t-shirt, selling an additional pants, or anything of the nature. You want to be as efficient as possible to make sure everyone has opportunity and better off. You want to hire as many people as you can, therefore providing jobs, so that way you can increase production. Now you don't want to hire too many, because then there's going to be conflict, confrontation, and you're going to be losing money. However, you want to strive to be the equilibrium point of having as many as you can without having too many, so that way you're making as many people better off not being as wasteful as possible, using your resources, and being as efficient as possible. And that's something that can be applied to all firms, all people, and all aspects of our modern economy. Our ninth principle is when markets don't achieve efficiency, government intervention can improve society's welfare. Sometimes, inevitably, there's externalities where markets fail. Markets, at times, cannot reach efficiency. It is when times like this that a government intervention can improve a country's warfare. For example, there are times when people can be overcome by greed and companies can be overcome by greed by one person in charge. So from a mutually beneficial trade can easily turn into a manipulation of the lesser party, so that way the higher party could be taking too much to allocate more resources to itself in an attempt to better itself. For example, monopolies. Monopolies can very easily happen and often have in our past and have been to the detriment of our society. Therefore, government intervention to stop monopolies have benefited society's welfare and our economy without having one person, one entity, or one firm completely corrupting an entire country's economy. This same principle can also be used to particular markets that simply cannot be effectively managed by the economic market. For instance, public land. Public land cannot often be maintained efficiently through simple market procedures. Instead, government intervention has come in to assure that public land, public goods, and public services can still be maintained, like freeways and parks. Though parks and freeways are not something that the market will take care of itself, there is no incentive for people to care for these goods. However, government intervention through cleaning, maintenance, and creation of these entities have allowed for efficiency in all aspects of our modern economy. So that is it for today's episode of Sipping Tea and Joenomics. Thank you for joining us, and make sure to tune in next Sunday where we'll be interviewing Beyonce and discussing her upcoming album. Hope you enjoyed our economic session, and have a good night.
Closed captioning for Sipping Tea and Joenomics has been brought to you in part by